The meteorological station in Busan sat perched on a coastal cliff, its white dome gleaming under the autumn sun. Inside, Dr. Taeho Kim hunched over his computer, rubbing his tired eyes. The clock showed 3:27 a.m., but sleep was impossible now. The patterns on his screen shouldn't exist. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the analysis program again. For 3 weeks, their instruments had been picking up strange signals from deep space. At first, Taeho dismissed them as equipment errors, then as possible natural phenomena. But now, staring at the clearly structured patterns pulsing across his monitor, he could no longer deny it. The signals were too regular, too precise. Nature didn't create perfect mathematical sequences. Taeho reached for his phone and called Dr. Jaiwo Park. Despite the hour, she answered on the second ring. "Jaiwo, you need to come see this now," he said, his voice catching. An hour later, Jaiwo stood beside him, her face pale in the blue light of the monitor. "Have you told anyone else?" she asked quietly. Taeho shook his head. "I wanted a second opinion first." Jaiwo leaned closer to the screen. "These are not random. They repeat exactly every 47 seconds. That's deliberate." The next morning, observatories across the world began reporting similar findings. Within days, the signals grew stronger. Scientists from every nation shared data, argued theories, and reached the same conclusion: something was coming. Global leaders gathered at an emergency United Nations session. Director Do Hyun of South Korea's National Security Council sat rigid in his seat as experts presented their findings. "The signals appear to be some form of communication," explained the lead physicist. "They're growing stronger because whatever is sending them is getting closer." Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Religious groups proclaimed the end times. Regular people stocked their homes with supplies, unsure what to expect. 68 days after Taeho's discovery, the sky changed. Hannah was walking to her office in Seoul when people around her began pointing upward. She stopped and followed their gaze. High above the city, the clear blue sky suddenly darkened as massive objects moved into position. Not clouds. Not planes. Something else entirely. Similar scenes played out across the globe. New York. London. Beijing. Cairo. Every major city suddenly found itself under the shadow of enormous vessels that had appeared without warning. The alien ships hung in silent formation. Their surfaces rippled like liquid metal, constantly shifting shape while maintaining their overall structure. They were nothing like the flying saucers of movies. They looked both organic and mechanical, defying human engineering concepts. "All attempts at communication have failed," reported General Min Soo to the hastily assembled crisis team in Seoul. "They're not responding to radio signals, light signals, or mathematical sequences." President Sunho stared at the live feed showing the largest vessel hovering above the Han River. What do they want? Why not communicate? No one had an answer. 3 days passed with the ship simply watching. Then everything changed. Yoonji was serving coffee at her parents' shop when the television broadcast switched to an emergency alert. Small craft were now departing from the main vessels, descending toward various points around the globe. "They're landing," the anchor said, voice shaking. "Repeat, alien craft are landing in multiple locations." Panic spread quickly. Some people fled cities while others barricaded themselves indoors. Roads clogged with traffic. Communication networks struggled under the load of millions trying to reach loved ones. The first landing site in Korea was confirmed near Jeju Island. Military forces surrounded the area but kept their distance as ordered. A similar scene played out at landing sites across all continents: the Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, the Australian outback, the Siberian plains, and the Rocky Mountains. Captain Miho led his special forces team to observe the Jeju landing site from a hidden position. Through binoculars, he watched as strange figures emerged from their craft. They stood taller than humans, with elongated limbs and bodies that seemed to shimmer as they moved. "They're collecting samples," he whispered into his radio. "Soil, plants, water. They're not advancing toward populated areas." The pattern repeated worldwide. The aliens seemed more interested in Earth itself than its people. Dr. Hyojin and her team at Seoul National University worked around the clock, analyzing every piece of information coming in about the visitors' behavior. "There's a pattern," she insisted, pointing to a map marked with landing sites. "They're not random. They're all at locations with specific geological features." Meanwhile, attempts at communication continued. Linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists collaborated on messages sent through every conceivable medium. But the aliens showed no interest in responding. Then came the first conflict. A military unit in a remote area of Russia, acting against orders, fired upon an alien scout ship. The response was immediate and devastating. The entire unit was disabled by an invisible force that shut down all their equipment and left the soldiers temporarily paralyzed. Yet the aliens didn't kill them. When the effect wore off hours later, the soldiers found themselves unharmed but the aliens gone, having collected what they came for. Similar incidents occurred in other locations. Any direct aggression was met with neutralizing force rather than destruction. The aliens seemed to regard humans as annoyances rather than threats or equals. On the fifth day, Dr. Suho made a breakthrough in Incheon. Working with a damaged scout ship that had crashed due to what appeared to be mechanical failure, his team managed to capture a living alien. The being was placed in a specially constructed chamber where scientists attempted various forms of communication. For hours, nothing worked. Then Soho tried a simple pattern of light pulses based on prime numbers. The alien responded. Within hours, a rudimentary form of communication developed. The information that came through was fragmented but alarming. "They call themselves something like travelers or seekers," Soho reported to government officials. "They've been searching for a new home. Their world is gone." "Do they want Earth?" asked Defense Minister Jasu. "Yes," replied Soho. "But there's more. They're running from something. Something that destroyed their home system and has been pursuing them across space. They've been fleeing for generations." Before more information could be extracted, something unexpected happened. All across the globe, the alien vessels suddenly began to withdraw. Scout ships returned to their mother ships. The massive vessels started moving upward. They were leaving. Humanity watched in confusion as the invasion force departed as quickly as it had arrived. Within hours, the skies were empty again, except for a few damaged vessels left behind and a small number of stranded aliens. No one understood why they left so suddenly, but Dr. Saito had a theory based on his limited communication. "They found something here they didn't expect," he explained. "Something that made Earth unsuitable for them. Or perhaps they detected that whatever is chasing them is getting close." As the world tried to make sense of what had happened, one thing became clear: Earth had experienced its first alien contact, and the visitors had departed just as mysteriously as they had arrived. What they left behind would change humanity forever. Retry Captain Miho crouched behind the remains of an overturned truck, the metal still warm from the alien weapons blast. Sweat trickled down his face despite the cool morning air. His team of 6 Special Forces soldiers lay scattered nearby, each taking cover among the debris that had once been a peaceful roadside rest area on the approach to Mount Hala. "Status report," he whispered into his communication device. "No movement for the past 5 minutes, replied Sergeant Kihyun from his position 50 meters to the east. They seemed focused on collecting samples from the volcanic soil. Miho carefully raised his head to peek over the truck. 3 alien figures moved methodically across the clearing, their tall forms bending occasionally to extract core samples from the ground. Their skin, if it could be called that, rippled with an oily sheen that changed color slightly as they moved, adapting to their surroundings like advanced camouflage. "Base Command wants us to maintain observation only," Miho reminded his team. "No engagement unless they approach civilian areas." The aliens had established what military analysts were calling beachheads at specific points around the globe. This site at the base of Mount Hala was one of 4 on the Korean peninsula. Similar scenes played out across the continents, in the volcanic regions of Iceland, near the mineral-rich areas of Australia, beside ancient impact craters in Africa. 72 hours had passed since the massive ships first appeared in Earth's skies. What began as a silent, hovering presence had quickly evolved into an invasion unlike anything humanity had prepared for. Miho's earpiece crackled. "Captain, we have movement. 2 more of those scout ships approaching from the north." He tensed as the small craft descended, their surfaces undulating like liquid metal. They landed with surprising grace, and more of the tall aliens emerged carrying equipment that defied human understanding. "What are they looking for?" muttered Ki-Hyun. That question echoed in crisis centers worldwide. The aliens weren't targeting population centers or strategic military installations. Instead, they focused on geological formations, water sources, and areas with unique biological diversity. 200 kilometers away in Seoul, Professor Hyojin hadn't slept in days. Her team at the university had been analyzing every piece of data about the alien landings. The pattern was becoming clear. "Look here," she said, pointing to the holographic map displaying landing sites. "Every location has unusual mineral compositions or geological anomalies. They're searching for something specific." Her colleague, Dr. Juno, nodded thoughtfully. "But what? And why now? If they have the technology to travel between stars, why such urgency?" Hyojin had no answer, but the question haunted her. In Taejun, where the military had established a forward command center, General Minsu reviewed reports from around the world. The pattern was consistent across all continents: minimal engagement with humans unless provoked, concentrated collection of geological and biological samples, and a strange urgency to their movements. "The Americans tried a direct approach at their Arizona landing site," reported his aide. 2 jet fighters for observation only. The aliens disabled their electronics instantly. Both pilots ejected safely, but the message was clear. Minsu frowned. "And the Russians?" "Their special forces engaged directly at the Siberian site. 20 soldiers. Only 3 returned. The aliens didn't pursue those who retreated." That was the pattern everywhere. The visitors showed no interest in conquest or communication. They defended themselves when attacked but otherwise ignored humanity completely. Back at Mount Hala, Captain Miho watched as the aliens extracted what appeared to be core samples from deep within the volcanic soil. Their equipment drilled down with impossible speed, then analyzed materials on the spot. "They're looking for something," he reported to base. "Something they expected to find here." That evening, a breakthrough occurred in Incheon. Dr. Suho, working with a captured alien from a damaged scout ship, established rudimentary communication through light patterns and mathematical sequences. The information came in fragments, but it was enough to change everything. "They're refugees," Soho explained to the stunned government officials gathered via video conference. Their home system was destroyed. They've been traveling for generations, looking for a suitable world. "So they want Earth?" asked Defense Minister Jasu. "Yes," replied Suho. "But there's more. They're running from something. Something that destroyed their civilization and has been pursuing them across the galaxy. They call it the Shadow in our closest translation." This revelation spread quickly through global leadership channels. Humanity wasn't just facing an invasion, they were caught in the middle of something far larger. 48 hours into what was now being called the 72-hour war, the aliens' behavior changed. Their collection became more frantic. Scout ships moved between sites more frequently. Something had shifted. At a research facility near Busan, Dr. Taeho and Dr. Jaiwoo made another discovery. The soil samples from alien landing sites showed microscopic changes, as if the alien presence itself was altering Earth's biochemistry. "It's like they're testing compatibility," Jaiwoo explained. "Seeing if Earth can be adapted to their needs." Meanwhile, Professor Hyojin's team noticed something in the global pattern of alien activities. "They're avoiding certain areas completely," she observed. "Places with specific radiation signatures or fungal biomes. There's something here they didn't expect to find." By the third day, military forces worldwide had learned to keep their distance while monitoring alien activities. Direct confrontations had proven futile against their technology. Conventional weapons barely slowed them, and their defensive capabilities could neutralize entire battalions without killing anyone. They could destroy us if they wanted to, Captain Miho reported after observing their efficient operations. But that's not their goal. They're scientists or explorers, not conquerors. Then, without warning, everything changed. It began at a landing site in Brazil. The aliens suddenly abandoned their equipment and returned to their ships. Within hours, the pattern repeated worldwide. The visitors were leaving, often in such haste that they left behind technology and, in some cases, their own kind. Captain Miho watched in astonishment as the aliens at Mount Hala suddenly stopped their work. Their movements became urgent, almost panicked. They gathered what samples they could and began retreating to their ships. "Something's happening," he reported. "They're leaving." One alien, separated from its group, found itself cut off from the nearest ship. It turned to face Miho's position, its large eyes reflecting the morning light. For a moment, human and alien regarded each other across the clearing. The alien made a gesture, a simple movement of its long fingers that somehow conveyed urgency and warning. Then it turned and fled into the forest. Within hours, the massive ships began ascending from Earth's atmosphere. The invasion that had barely begun was already ending. In Incheon, before the aliens departed, Dr. Saito managed one final exchange with the captured visitor. "Why are you leaving?" he asked through their improvised communication system. The alien's response was cryptic but chilling: "Wrong composition. Incompatible. But shadow comes. We warned you. Prepare." Then it too was gone, leaving humanity to wonder what had just happened. As the alien vessels disappeared into space, they left behind damaged ships, abandoned technology, and a handful of stranded individuals. More importantly, they left Earth with questions that had no answers. What had they been searching for? Why had they left so suddenly? And what was the shadow that pursued them? The world's greatest minds turned to these questions as the cleanup began. The 72-hour war had ended not with humanity's victory or defeat, but with a mystery that would shape the future of the planet. Retry Hyunji stood on the rooftop of her apartment building in Seoul, watching the enormous alien ships rise silently into the dawn sky. Their metallic surfaces caught the first rays of sunlight, creating ripples of color that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. All around her, neighbors had gathered to witness the departure, their faces showing a mixture of relief and confusion. "Are they really leaving?" asked an elderly man beside her. "Looks that way," Yunji replied, not lowering her binoculars. "But not all of them." She pointed to the eastern horizon where one of the smaller vessels listed awkwardly, clearly damaged. Unlike the others ascending in perfect formation, this ship struggled to maintain altitude before sinking back toward the ground. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. The massive alien fleet that had appeared so suddenly 3 days ago was withdrawing just as abruptly, leaving behind damaged vessels and stranded forces. No explanation, no communication, no formal end to what had barely become a war. At the hastily established Joint Military Command in Taejun, General Minsu watched the radar displays as the alien signatures vanished one by one from Earth's atmosphere. "Confirmed departure of approximately 87% of the alien fleet," reported a technician. "Remaining signals appear to be damaged vessels or those unable to achieve escape velocity." "What about ground forces?" asked the general. "Reports coming in from all continents indicate stranded alien personnel at approximately 32 locations worldwide. 4 within our borders." Minsu nodded grimly. "Establish containment perimeters but maintain non-aggressive posture. I want those aliens alive for questioning." Within hours of the main fleet's departure, Special Forces teams worldwide moved to secure sites with remaining alien presence. The visitors who had seemed so powerful, so untouchable, were suddenly vulnerable, cut off from their main forces and apparently abandoned. At the base of Mount Hala, Captain Miho led his team cautiously toward the damaged scout ship that had failed to depart. Thermal scans suggested 3 alien life forms remained inside. "Remember, non-lethal approaches only," he reminded his soldiers. "We need them alive." As they approached, the ship's entry points suddenly opened. A tall alien figure emerged, its movements clearly labored. It made no aggressive moves but stood waiting as the humans approached. In its three-fingered hand, it held what appeared to be a communication device. "Careful," warned Sergeant Kihyun. "Could be a weapon." Miho held up his hand to stop his team's advance. "I don't think so. I think it wants to talk." At research facilities worldwide, scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology left behind. Dr. Kyungo led the primary analysis team in Taejun, where components from a damaged alien vessel had been transported. "Their technology operates on principles we barely theorized," he explained to the assembled officials. "It's not just advanced, it's fundamentally different." Defense Minister Jisoo leaned forward. "Different how?" "Their systems appear partially biological," Kyungo replied, pointing to microscope images on the screen. "The metal components bond with organic elements we can't even identify. It's like their technology is alive." Even more concerning were the environmental changes beginning to appear at former alien landing sites. Strange crystalline formations grew from the soil where their equipment had stood. Unusual energy readings persisted long after the aliens departed. Plants near landing zones showed accelerated growth and mutation. Professor Hyojin's team monitored these changes with growing concern. "The alien presence has triggered something," she reported. "Their brief time here altered our environment at a molecular level. We don't yet understand the long-term implications." In Incheon, the breakthrough in alien communication expanded rapidly. Dr. Suho worked with linguists and mathematicians to build upon the rudimentary exchange established before the departure. The captured alien, now referred to as Navigator by the research team, seemed eager to communicate. "We've established that they call themselves the Navi," Suho announced at the international briefing 3 days after the fleet's departure. "They've been traveling for what translates to roughly 7 generations in their timescale." "Why did they come to Earth?" asked a representative from the United Nations. "Their home system was destroyed. They've been searching for suitable worlds to colonize. Earth was high on their list of potential new homes." "And why did they leave so suddenly?" Soho hesitated. "2 reasons, as far as we can determine. First, they discovered something in Earth's biosphere that makes it incompatible with their physiology. Some kind of microbial life unique to our planet that would be harmful to them long-term." The room fell silent, waiting for the second reason. "And," Soho continued, "because whatever destroyed their homeworld has been following them. The Navigator calls it the Void in our closest translation. They detected signs that it had found their trail again." This revelation sent shockwaves through global leadership. Earth had just survived one alien encounter only to learn of something potentially worse on the horizon. Meanwhile, the stranded aliens began showing signs of illness. Whatever incompatibility they had discovered affected them directly. At containment facilities worldwide, medical teams worked to keep the visitors alive while learning everything possible from them. At Mount Hala, the alien that had approached Captain Miho's team survived longer than most, perhaps due to the prompt medical intervention. Through improvised communication devices, it shared vital information. "They've been fleeing for centuries," Miho reported to his superiors. "Planet to planet, staying just ahead of this void entity. Earth was meant to be their final destination, a place to rebuild their civilization." "Why Earth specifically?" asked General Minsu. "Resources, atmospheric composition, distance from their pursuers. But something in our biosphere makes it impossible for them. Some microorganism that's harmless to us but toxic to them." 2 weeks after the departure, Dr. Kyungo made another discovery while examining the alien navigation systems. "They left a warning network," he explained, pointing to components that continued to function despite being separated from their power source. "These devices are designed to monitor deep space and alert us if the void approaches." "They left us a defense system?" asked Defense Minister Jisoo, surprised. "Not exactly a defense, more like an early warning. They couldn't stay, but they felt obligated to warn us." As the days passed, more information emerged from the remaining alien technology and the few surviving visitors. The Navi had indeed been searching for a new home after their civilization was devastated. Earth had been one of several candidate planets, but the only one with the right combination of resources and distance from the pursuing entity. Their invasion had never been intended as conquest in the traditional sense. They needed to test Earth's compatibility quickly, hence the urgent collection of samples from around the globe. When they discovered the microbial incompatibility, they had no choice but to continue their journey, but many had nowhere left to go. 1 month after the departure, the last surviving alien at the Mount Hala facility deteriorated rapidly. Before it died, it managed to transfer a substantial data package through the communication system. Captain Miho was present for this final exchange. "It wanted us to have this information," he reported. "Star charts, technological principles, warnings about the void. Almost like an inheritance." The alien's final message was translated as, "Prepare. Adopt. The journey continues through you now." Around the world, the alien technology left behind began affecting Earth in unexpected ways. The crystalline formations at landing sites expanded, creating new mineral compounds never before seen. Plants exposed to alien materials developed unusual properties. The very soil composition changed in subtle but significant ways. Earth itself was transforming, adapting to the brief alien presence in ways no one had anticipated. 6 months after the departure, global monitoring stations detected a familiar pattern of signals from deep space, similar to those that had preceded the Navi arrival, but with subtle differences. Humanity faced an uncertain future, forever changed by visitors who had invaded Earth and never returned. Retry 20 years passed since the day the alien ships rose into the dawn sky and disappeared. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted before the 72-hour invasion that altered the course of human history. In what was once called Seoul, now the gleaming headquarters of the United Earth Coalition, director Jin Woo walked through the memorial garden. Crystal formations grew here, descendants of the alien technology that had merged with Earth's soil. They caught the morning light in prismatic patterns, beautiful yet strange. A reminder of how the world had been transformed. Jinwoo stopped before the statue of his grandfather, who had been part of the original crisis team during the invasion. The old man had not lived to see how humanity unified in the wake of the Navi departure, but he had helped set that unity in motion. "Director, the council is assembling," said his assistant, approaching with a tablet in hand. Jinwoo nodded. "Any updates from the containment zones?" The Asian zone reports continued stabilization. "The mutations have slowed considerably this quarter." This was good news. The environmental changes triggered by the alien presence had been one of humanity's greatest challenges. Where their ships had landed, where their technology had touched the soil, life had changed. Plants grew in impossible ways. Animals evolved at accelerated rates. Entire ecosystems transformed. Early attempts to stop these changes had failed. Instead, humanity learned to contain, study, and eventually harness them. The containment zones, massive areas quarantined around former landing sites, had become Earth's most valuable research laboratories. Jinwoo entered the council chamber where representatives from every continent waited. Once divided by borders and ideologies, humanity now stood united by a common purpose: preparation. "The orbital defense network is fully operational," announced Chief Engineer Tae-yong, standing beside a holographic display of Earth and its new protective shell. "All 27 satellites are online, incorporating the reverse-engineered Navi propulsion systems." This had been the work of decades, understanding and adapting the alien technology left behind. Progress that might have taken centuries compressed into years by the desperate knowledge that Earth needed to be ready. "Energy output is stable at 87% efficiency," Taeyong continued. "We're still working to improve the conversion ratios, but the shield capacity now covers all major population centers." Jinwoo studied the display with mixed emotions. Pride in what humanity had accomplished, certainly. Fear of why such accomplishments had been necessary. "And the Deep Space Monitoring Network?" he asked. Communications Director Sora stepped forward. "All sensors are functioning at optimal levels. No sign of the void entity described in the Navi records, but we continue to scan at all frequencies they warned us about." The warning system left behind by the departing aliens had been their most valuable gift. Through it, humanity learned to detect the approach of what had pursued the Na'vi across the stars, though 20 years had passed with no sign of this mysterious void. Some wondered if it was merely a myth, a cultural fear that had driven the Na'vi to flee. Others believed it was very real but had lost their trail. Most, like Jinwoo, simply prepared as if it could arrive tomorrow. After the council meeting, Jinwoo visited the Adaptive Technologies Department where his team worked to integrate alien biotechnology with human medicine. The healing applications are remarkable, explained Chief Medical Officer Myung, showing him a patient whose catastrophic burns were being treated with a gel derived from the crystal formations. The regeneration rate has improved 40% with the new formula. This too was part of the Na'vi legacy, not just weapons and defenses, but advances in medicine, agriculture, and energy production. Humanity had leaped forward centuries in development, driven by both the gifts and threats the brief invasion had left behind. That evening, as Jinwoo reviewed reports in his office, a call came through from the Antarctic Research Station. "Director, you need to see this immediately," said Dr. Minji, her face serious on the video screen. "We've been analyzing the data core recovered from the damaged Na'vi ship in Sector 4. "I thought that core was depleted years ago," replied Jinwoo. "So did we. But the recent energy fluctuations in the containment zone activated something. There's a hidden data partition we never detected before." Minji sent the files to his secure terminal. As Jinwoo reviewed them, he felt a chill run down his spine. The data wasn't just information, it was a warning, deliberately left dormant until certain conditions were met. "It's not just abandoned technology," Minji explained. "They left a warning system deliberately. And it's activating now." The system was designed to remain dormant until it detected specific energy signatures in deep space, signatures matching what the Na'vi called the void. According to the newly revealed data, those signatures had been detected at the edge of the solar system. "How long have we had?" asked Jinwoo. "The signals began 3 days ago," replied Minji. "Based on the Na'vi calculations, months, perhaps a year at most." Jinwoo immediately called an emergency council session. As leaders gathered from around the world, he presented the findings. "The void entity that pursued the Na'vi may have found Earth," he explained. "The warning system they left behind has activated." "Could it be a malfunction?" asked the representative from the African Union. "After 20 years, the technology could be degrading." "We've verified the signals independently," replied Minji via video link. "Our deep space array confirms unusual energy patterns at the system's edge. Something is out there." The room fell silent as the implications settled in. For 2 decades, humanity had prepared for this possibility, but facing it now made all their preparations seem suddenly inadequate. "Activate the orbital defense network," ordered Jinwoo. "Full global alert status." As the meeting continued, Jinwoo stepped aside to look out the window at the transformed city below. The crystal structures that had once been alien now seemed natural parts of the landscape. The advanced transportation systems developed from Na'vi technology moved people efficiently between gleaming towers. Children born after the invasion grew up in a world where alien influence was simply part of life. Would it all be enough? Had 20 years of preparation given humanity a chance against whatever had destroyed the Na'vi civilization? A week later, the deep space sensors detected something unexpected. The energy signatures weren't approaching as predicted. Instead, they appeared to be moving parallel to the solar system, as if passing by. "It's not following the trajectory we expected," explained Sora at the emergency briefing. "The void entity seems to be ignoring us." This puzzled the scientific community. If this was the same force that had pursued the Na'vi across the galaxy, why would it pass Earth by? The answer came from an unexpected source. In the Antarctic containment zone, where one of the largest Na'vi ships had crashed, the crystal formations suddenly began forming new patterns. Scientists studying the site discovered the formations were creating what appeared to be a communication device. "It's as if the dormant Na'vi technology is responding to the distant energy signatures," reported Dr. Minji. "Creating a way to communicate with something." 3 days later, the sensor network detected new signals, structured differently from both human and Na'vi communications. Something else was out there, watching Earth. Something that had been drawn by the activation of the Navi warning system. As humanity held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next, one thing became clear: the Navi invasion, brief as it had been, had forever altered Earth's place in the cosmos. Their legacy lived on not just in the transformed environment and advanced technology, but in preparing humanity for its next great challenge. The stars no longer seemed distant and silent. They were filled with both dangers and possibilities. And Earth, forever changed, was now ready to face them. Retriage the newly completed planetary defense array formed a protective web around Earth, visible at night as faint lines connecting bright points in the sky. From the command center in the United Earth headquarters, Commander Juno monitored the deep space feeds with growing concern. Still nothing from Sector 7, he asked the young officer at the tracking station. "No, sir," she replied. "Whatever was passing through that region has changed course again. It's not approaching Earth, but it's not leaving either." For 3 months, they had tracked the mysterious energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Everyone expected the void entity described in Navi records, the destroyer that had pursued the aliens across the galaxy. But the behavior of this visitor matched nothing in the Navi warnings. "It's watching us," Juno said quietly. "Studying our defenses." He called Director Jean Wu immediately. Within an hour, the Global Security Council gathered in the emergency chamber. Representatives from all 7 continental unions sat around the circular table, faces grave in the blue light of the holographic display. "The entity has maintained position just beyond Pluto's orbit for 27 days, Juno explained, pointing to the pulsing dot on the display. "Our long-range scans detect a mass consistent with a large vessel, but with an energy signature unlike anything in our records, including the Navi database." "Could it be the void entity in a different form?" asked the European Union representative. "Possible," replied Juno. "But the Navi records were specific about the void's energy pattern. This is something else entirely." The room fell silent as the implications settled in. Not the nightmare they had prepared for, but something unknown. In some ways, that was more frightening. The Antarctic Communication Array has been attempting contact using modified Navi protocols, added Communications Director Sora. No response yet. Director Jinwoo stood up slowly. At 63, his hair had gone completely white, but his eyes remained sharp and clear. Maintain defense readiness, but no provocative actions. If this entity wanted to attack, it's had ample opportunity. 3 days later, everything changed. The massive ship appeared in Earth orbit without warning. One moment the space around the planet was clear, the next a vessel hung above the North Pacific. The defense array sensors hadn't detected its approach, it was simply there, as if it had always been. Unlike the organic mechanical design of Navi ships, this vessel was elegant, almost crystalline in structure. It reflected sunlight in rainbow patterns, beautiful and alien. Its size dwarfed humanity's largest space stations. Before defense forces could respond, a signal broadcast on all frequencies and in all languages simultaneously. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We are the Guardians. We wish to speak." In the chaotic hours that followed, global leaders debated how to respond. Military advisors urged caution. Scientists pushed for immediate engagement. The public, seeing the ship visible in daylight like a new moon, demanded answers. Finally, President Hanna of the United Earth Coalition made the decision. "We will talk." The being that appeared on the worldwide broadcast called itself Ambassador Elam. Its form was humanoid but clearly not human, tall and slender with skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Its features were elegant, almost ethereal, with large eyes that reflected like opals. "We have observed your encounter with the Navi Collective," it said, its voice translated through a device that rendered its speech in melodic tones. "And your remarkable adaptation to their technology." In the United Earth headquarters, President Hanna leaned forward. "You know of the Navi?" "We have tracked them across 17 star systems," replied Ambassador Elam. "They are galactic parasites, consuming resources and moving on before the consequences of their harvesting become apparent." This revelation stunned humanity. The pitiful refugees they had imagined were something else entirely. The void entity they feared? Asked Jinwoo, who stood beside President Hannah. A construct of their own making, explained Elam. The cumulative environmental collapse that follows their pattern of consumption. They do not terraform worlds to suit themselves, they extract what they need, leaving devastation in their wake. Then flee before the consequences fully manifest. The Guardian explained that their civilization had monitored developing worlds for millennia, protecting them from exploitative species like the Na'vi. They had been pursuing the Na'vi not to destroy them, but to prevent them from damaging more worlds. We expected to find Earth damaged beyond recovery, continued Elam. Instead, we found something unprecedented. You contained the Na'vi influence. Adapted it. Transformed potential devastation into advancement. Images appeared on screens worldwide, other planets the Na'vi had visited. Barren wastelands where they had extracted critical resources. Dead worlds where their biological technology had run wild, consuming everything in unsustainable growth patterns. The warning system they left was not altruism, said Elam. It was a beacon, meant to signal whether their biological agents had successfully prepared Earth for their eventual return. When your scientists activated the dormant technology, we detected it and came to investigate. In Antarctica, Dr. Minji and her team watched with growing horror as they realized the crystal formations they'd been studying were not benign gifts. The Na'vi plan had been more insidious than anyone imagined. The containment zones, Minji whispered. They were never meant to be contained. Ambassador Elam confirmed her fear. The biological agents were designed to transform Earth's ecosystem to suit Na'vi physiology. Your quarantine measures prevented global spread. Your adaptive technologies redirected their purpose. And the Na'vi themselves? Asked President Hannah. Will they return? They will not, replied Elam with certainty. After leaving your world, they attempted to seed another system. We intercepted them there. The implication hung in the air. The Guardians had done what was necessary to protect other worlds from the fate the Na'vi had planned for Earth. In the days that followed, Guardian representatives shared knowledge about the true nature of the abandoned Na'vi technology. The crystal formations were meant to spread across Earth's surface, gradually altering atmospheric composition and soil chemistry. The strange plants and animals in the containment zones would have eventually outcompete native species, creating an ecosystem compatible with Na'vi biology. You turned their weapons into tools, said a Guardian scientist to Dr. Minji as they examined the Antarctic formations. Something no other species has managed. 1 week after their arrival, Ambassador Elam addressed the Global Security Council with an unexpected proposal. We offer humanity membership in the Galactic Covenant, with conditions. The Covenant, Elam explained, was an alliance of advanced civilizations dedicated to protecting developing worlds and maintaining balanced relationships between spacefaring species. Earth would be the youngest member by millions of years. What conditions? Asked Director Jinwoo cautiously. The Na'vi technology must remain contained and supervised. Your defensive capabilities will be limited to the solar system until your species reaches sufficient maturity. And you must share your unique adaptive approach with other worlds affected by similar biological weapons. The Council debated for days. Some saw the conditions as restrictions on human sovereignty. Others recognized them as reasonable precautions for a young species suddenly thrust onto a galactic stage. In the end, humanity accepted the offer. 5 years later, the first human ambassadors departed for the Covenant's central worlds. Among them was Dr. Minji, whose work with the Na'vi crystal formations had helped develop the protocols for healing damaged ecosystems. As their ship departed Earth orbit, accompanied by a Guardian vessel, Minji looked back at her home planet. The containment zones were visible as bright green patches against the continents. The planetary defense array glinted in the sunlight. Both were reminders of how close humanity had come to destruction, and how that near disaster had instead opened the door to the stars. The aliens had invaded Earth, and they never returned. But their legacy lived on, transformed from a weapon into humanity's greatest opportunity. As Ambassador Elam had told them, the universe is filled with both wonders and dangers. The true measure of an intelligent species is not whether they can survive an invasion, but what they learn from it. Humanity had learned well. Retriclod can make mistakes.